Do you find yourself struggling with contentment? Today's episode is all about how to be content, and it's a subject that we all kind of struggle with, and I think it's going to be very helpful for you to start enjoying where you are in your life more on a daily basis. How are you doing, Kat?
I'm doing great. How are you, Andrew?
I'm super duper.
Okay.
Why not?
So glad I asked. Go on.
Oh, yeah. So this episode came about from a few days ago. We were talking about things, and I think being content sounds super simple. And I think there's people that do it wonderfully. I'm not one of them. I don't believe that you are in the upper echelon of just being content, but I know we're both working on being content. So maybe you could share the story about how this all came about.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to acknowledge that we are going along with our listeners on the 5-Year You journey, right? The purpose of our podcast is to become our best selves in 5 years. And the goal for the company is to help 1 million people become their best selves in 5 years. So all that to say, we are not sharing these lessons from a higher up place. We are learning them right along with you. And so I recently moved to a Chicago suburb, and it's a beautiful little town full of beautiful houses. And I chose this place because it's safe and has good school districts, but I rent an apartment. Right. I've been a homeowner before. I've owned and sold 2 houses, and I'm at the point in my life where I am, trying to rebuild, pay off debt, and, meet some financial goals. And I recently turned 37, and Andrew and I took a walk around my new town, my new neighborhood, and I immediately started to feel bad, less than, because it was one beautiful house after another. It was one gorgeous lawn after another, one perfectly landscaped house. Each one was like more magnificent than the rest. And instead of being grateful that I found a safe place to live that was in an amazing school district that, my kids can safely walk around, instead, I felt like I was behind in life. I felt like I was where those people were, but because of a bunch of different things, divorce, etc., I felt like I had downgraded and I had done a disservice to my kids. And what I told Andrew is I'm starting to feel really bad about myself walking around this neighborhood because I wanted to give my kids this. I wanted them to have it. And I feel like, I'm kind of getting emotional right now talking about it. It's okay. I feel like they had it and now they don't. And it was hard. And so then, and you told me what?
I'm not interrupting you with this.
No. I was going to say, and your response to me and our discussion led to this topic idea.
Yeah. So that voice in your head is, I think, where I want to touch on right now, because I think we have a really good story maker in our head, and unfortunately he's writing, he or she or it is writing horror stories and dramas more than they're writing happy comedies and rom-coms and all these things. And that voice is our ego coming in, telling us that we didn't do it. We weren't right. We did it wrong. And you see it with everyone. We all have an ego. That's kind of how we survive in the world. That's what we teach our kids when they're very young is, you need to be looking out for things, because if you don't have that, you aren't safe. But then it becomes a point in our lives where the ego kind of flips on us, and it is almost a detriment to how we live and our happiness and our contentment. And we'll get into happiness in another episode. This is just about being content. Because like we said, the happiest people are the most content. And in that moment, you're not looking at the roof over your head, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but like the lack of mortgage that you have and mortgage payments that you have to make. And I did my best in that moment to kind of point out to you how utterly fake it all is.
Yeah.
And, because I also, I'm in a condo now, and life is different than it was a few years ago. And I can beat myself up about the way I think it was when it wasn't, and
Mm.
make myself feel bad all day long. And my ego and your ego are really good at doing that. So the reality is we're actually much more happy than we've ever been, and we're much more content
Yes.
than we've ever been. The problem is it's kind of like the expression goes, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it.
Yeah.
And you get it, and then you're like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle, you know, not having a million
Stress.
obligations. The stress. I don't know how to handle not having the problems that I'm used to having, and our brains will actively find them.
Yeah.
So a big part of being content is not actively seeking problems, because problems are going to find you.
Yeah.
Like they're just going to, they will show up eventually. You don't need to worry about that. But when you're content with things, you can actually embrace them a little bit differently and kind of go, okay, this is just a roadblock or a bump in the road that I need to get around, get over, get through to get back to feeling content. So what we're really trying to emphasize today is you can make contentment kind of a baseline rather than this thing that you experience. For
Yeah.
me, it's glimpses of contentment. I wouldn't even say that I have like full days, but I really want my attitude to shift where this is my baseline, where I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
how are you? I'm good. And I actually mean it, not, you know,
Right. I think that another thing that was going on with me at the walk, so it was like a double whammy, right? It's like I had this feeling of being behind. I had this feeling of, failure, like I had let my kids down. And then I had this like double heaping of like self loathing because I know better. Because we do episodes like the rules are fake. I know that checking every box of getting, 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and the house and the job and the this and the car, I know that that doesn't equal happiness. We have done 20 episodes on on things like this. I have uh, done research and written a personal finance book. I know statistically what most people have in terms of their debt load, the amount of stress they feel. I know like what percentage of people are not quote unquote where they should be in their retirement savings. I know all of this. And even with all of the self introspection and all of the therapy, I still let that feeling of less than win that morning. And it was like powerful. It's like I was in a funk. Andrew will tell you the whole day. I tried so many different things. He tried so many different things to get me out of it. And it's like, I just couldn't shake it until I went to sleep and woke up the next day and tried again.
yeah. I did all the things. I said all the right things, I think.
You did.
I,
Yeah.
I took her to Chick-fil-A, which is our favorite restaurant to go to. I bought her 6
Yeah.
cookies because, well, if we're being honest, I bought her 1 cookie and me 5, but because she wasn't going to eat any more than one. But, I,
I mean, man, if you can't get past a funky mood with that, I mean, you just got to go to sleep.
yeah. And you know what? That's not a bad thing. Sometimes you just got to
Yeah,
go to bed and let the brain reset.
it's true.
It's like, you know what? I am not getting better. And I think part of the problem with that for myself is that I'm like, no, it's a thing I can fix, and I'm going to fix it with overthinking. And it's the
Yeah.
actually opposite that works. It's just kind of finding the joy and simplicity. And that's really what contentment is. It's looking at what you have and going like, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm good with this. Yeah, I want more. Yeah. And I think that's a part of the balance that I've been struggling with when it comes to contentment is like, how are you okay where you are while still wanting to go to your 5 year you. And in my personal case, I got to where I was in life by being ridiculously hard on myself.
Mm,
I went a different path. You know, I, I don't know if we've shared this on the show, but I mean, I got national attention when I paid off my mortgage in 6 years, and I thought I was
mm-hmm.
doing all the right things, and it was at the time, but I wasn't any more content after those things were done. I was a little less stressed not having a mortgage at the time, and now I'm in a completely different situation, of course. But
Yeah.
I block my own contentment. It's like I put, we have like off here for mosquitoes. I don't know if you guys have that down there,
Yeah, we do.
but yeah, like it's like I put contentment off on me every morning when I wake up, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I waking up thinking about the problems and not thinking about the greatness of life?
Yeah.
Like this is you know, it's hard, but only because I'm choosing to make it hard. And that's the journey, is kind of going like,
Yeah.
you know what? I got food in my stomach. I got water. I've got the internet, which is now my, kind of priority in life, contentment. Um, but
Yeah.
what now? Okay. So you're out of this now. We've
Mm-hmm.
moved past this day. I want you to go back in your mind. And I know I'm putting you on the spot with this.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to tell yourself in that moment? Because you were asking me to tell you a bunch of things, which I happily did, and it was all true and accurate, but nothing was working. So what do you think would have worked for you in a moment like that, when you're like, the day before you were really happy, you were like,
Yeah.
we're kind of like we had a really good day. I don't remember what we did, but it was a really good day. And then,
Yeah.
the good days don't exist without the contrast of the bad days.
That's right.
So what could have been, what did you need to tell yourself? Because I don't think it's
Yeah.
an external thing. I think it's an internal thing that kind of needs to happen. So what could it have been?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what would have worked, but I do know that the hardest person on me is me. And I do know that I like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist, but the recovery seems to be a long one. Um, and I do know that a lot of my feelings of, wanting to be quote unquote successful and things like that are things I've had to unlearn from society, from being raised in a family that really values education and career success and things like that. And so I need to continuously work on telling myself that I'm okay and I'm doing the best I can, and that the choices I've made up to this point um, have been great for the kids. And, but even as I say, you're doing a good job, it's like immediately my brain goes, no, you're not. You could have written one more article. You could have done that. It really is a challenge for me to not beat myself up. And a lot of it comes from, how I grew up. And a lot of it comes from the type of job I do. Like you've heard me say so many times, like I wrote a money book, like I should not be in this position. And then I tell myself, you like have made such good progress. I've paid off a ton of debt in the last 2 years. I've done a lot from it, and I've developed good habits, and I've really reduced my stress load. And so for me, I don't know if I'll learn my lesson anytime soon, but I can say that in the moments when I'm not in it, working on mindfulness and talking to myself, and like we've said, like being proud of myself is like a new thing for me that I'm trying out. Um,
How's that
but
going?
these are the things that I struggle with on my 5 year U journey that are going to take time. It's taken me, 30 plus years, and these neural pathways are very deep ruts, and my brain just snaps right to what's familiar each time. And so in order to create the you're doing a good job pathway is a very light, like pebbles right now. So
Right. Um, and if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't understand this neural pathway talk and all these things. I've came up with an example, and Kat, you've heard it before, but I'm going to use it again here because I think it helps for
Mm-hmm.
people. So let's imagine you are standing in a field of high grass and you're a kid, and suddenly you get hungry and you see McDonald's over in the field, and this is, or a fast food restaurant. Let's not go brand specific. So you walk to the fast food place, you get your food, it makes you feel good in the moment, and then you walk back. So you've just kind of beaten down the grass just a little bit. And that's how your neural pathway starts to form. Now, if you do 30 years of daily fast food treks, that pathway is going to be beat down. It'll be as hard as rock, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because you have done that. Now, if you decide at some point, you know what, I'm going to lose weight, I need to go to the farmer's market, which is in a completely different way. The first time you do it, it's going to feel weird because that grass has never been stepped on before. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to have to beat a new pathway over and over again while the other pathway starts to kind of grow in a bit. So when we're talking about neural pathways, that's always the visual I give myself is like,
Mm.
yeah, this feeling bad neural pathway is really there because let's be honest, it served you. It served
Yeah.
me. It served me to be hard on myself. It served me to, berate myself. I used to go to the gym and I would visualize a drill instructor standing in front of me, yelling at me at full volume while I did my workout, thinking that it would make me push harder. And it did, but I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to do the exact opposite. I'm trying to get a new neural pathway where I'm doing these things in a different way with different voices. So I can't remember if we've talked about this on our show or
We
or
have,
whatnot.
but we haven't, but that's a really good example. Like we've sort of talked about like the wagon going down, like, and being able to like go into the treads, right?
Yeah.
But I like this analogy. And I want to say that one thing that I think would help me is to, uh, go down the new pathways during calm moments, during meditation, during journaling, because our brains are designed for efficiency and safety. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the human race is relatively young in the span of the universe, and we still have the same built-in protections that our caveman ancestors had, where our brains are designed to conserve energy to keep us alive. And so in moments of stress and moments of like sadness or big emotions, your brain's going to go to the most efficient thing, which is to go to the path that's already there.
Yeah.
And that's not really the time when you're stressed and sad and hungry to start walking through the tall grass. Your brain automatically directs you to the fastest thing. And that's what's going to happen. And so it's up to us to create. The brain's an amazing thing, and it can form new pathways. It's just we have to work at it. And I actually, this whole conversation, it something people might not know about me is I'm a huge Potterhead, right? And there's a part of Harry
Potter at the end. Harry
Potter.
Potter, not a
Yes,
pothead,
yes.
but a Potterhead.
Nope, never been a pothead, but I am a Potterhead. Big Harry Potter fan. And there is a part in the first book where Harry finds himself in front of the mirror of Erised. And it's a mirror that shows people what they really truly want in their hearts, right? And so when Harry, who's an orphan, sits in front of the mirror, he's surrounded by family and who are hugging him. And like, that's what his heart wants. And, he's kind of wasting away in front of this mirror night after night. And finally, Dumbledore comes and he's like, I'm going to move the mirror because men have wasted away in front of this. And he's explaining how it works and the way that Dumbledore explains it. And he says, like, the happiest man in the world will look in the mirror and see only himself.
Yeah, like
And, the rest of us don't, right? And so that is certainly an ideal, but the goal is to be the kind of person who looks into the mirror and sees us exactly as we are right now with everything that we have. And that is the definition of true contentment. And when you're truly content with what your life is and what you have and the moment you're in, and you know, you don't have the desires to be better, have the bigger house, have the nicer car, whatever. Those are the things that kind of contribute to unhappiness. And something that we always say is what we're trying to do is to be content with what we have while still pursuing what we want.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a really, really good way of summing it up. I think when we are, one of the things I've been doing, sorry, I'm going to get to that in a second, but one of the things I've been doing is trying to just sit with my happiness and sit with contentment and like try to give myself, when it comes to happiness, I'm trying to give myself ever increasing amounts of happiness in my life. It's very uncomfortable, by the way. But another challenge is just to sit with what you have and just be like, this is good. Yeah, it's not everything I want right now, but you aren't meant to have everything you want right now. You're meant to have desire so that you move forward in your life. And that's what we're trying to convey here is that life will be better for you, I assume. This is what I'm working on. When you are moving towards your goals, but you're happy with where you are. And it's our amygdala that kind of pops up and goes, well, we have to find problems. We have to find these things. And it's just lying to you. That's why, the amygdala, the front part of our brain, it's how we've kind of evolved this way. I call it Amy. I tell her, shut up, Amy, all the time.
Sometimes we say that be Amy.
Yeah. Again, no offense to anybody named Amy. I have
No
several
offense at
friends with
all.
that name, but it's just saying shut up amygdala just doesn't have the same oomph. But I will say that Kat, that's what happened with you
I
the other
know.
day was just like
Yeah.
your amygdala popped up and it's like, you're not this, you're not that. And again,
Yeah.
lifetime of programming, all the things, totally okay. But it's being able to kind of look at it and go, wow, I went down that pathway and I really don't want to. So I need to kind of sit with it differently, and you're not going to get it perfect. And that's, again, I know recovering perfectionist, ditto. We have to be able to look at ourselves and go, this is a really good part on the journey. And I think a really hard part of the human experience is when you experience a bad moment, you seem to think it's going to be the rest of your life, and it's
Right.
not.
No.
And, and you can, I get those quotes from the motivation app all the time. It's like, it's not a bad moment. It's just a bad moment. It's not a bad day, month, year, week, life.
Yeah.
But it's hard in that moment. So there's a bunch of things I'm sure we're going to work on and discover and share with you guys as we go through our own journeys. What I find with being content is, as somebody who just likes to be doing things, I mean, like my literal last name is doer. It's in my DNA to go do things. I know it's spelled differently, but still, it's like, I'm a doer. That's what I've always been. So for me to sit and just go, this is okay. In fact, this is good.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to look back on all you've accomplished. And sometimes, and I don't know if this would have helped you in the moment, but sometimes you need to go, look, you've done a lot. You're actually at a really good place. And these things you're telling yourself that you aren't. Do you want to have all those things? Like, did you want to have the house with the lawn and all those things? Or is it just something that sometimes because we talked about this on the walk, was that you and I hate yard work. We hate cleaning houses. So the actual idea of having a giant house with a giant yard is very, very painful. So while we're going like, well, we live in condos and stuff and we don't have the big houses, like, I actually don't want that. We both had those things and we're like, it is not for me right now. Maybe it is in the future. Who knows?
Who knows?
But it's not part of my 5-year plan. It's not like I'm looking at that going like, wow, yeah, I can't wait to have, a $4 million house or something like that.
No. Yeah.
No, or a big yard or even a yard. I kind of look at things and I'm like, I'm giving myself permission to reframe it. So sometimes when you're stuck in the moment, looking back and acknowledging all you've done, And then looking forward gets you out of that present moment, which is it's kind of funny because we always talk about being present in the moment and enjoying it. But sometimes you got to like move your time around so that you can look at it and go, yeah, no, this isn't what I want. I don't know. Do you think that would have helped you at all?
Yeah, I think it might have. I agree, and we did talk about that on the walk, and um, it's good. I think I probably could have, journaled it, or remembered the time my basement flooded in my nice big house and all the things that were very stressful. It was really hard to get out of it that day, and that's why we brought it up. But I at least hope that by sharing that, that listeners maybe can relate. And even though it's a work in progress, I at least hope by describing the steps we took, including the Chick-fil-A cookies, can help you, work through those thoughts if you ever have them yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good place to sum up for this episode. We're going to go more into contentment and happiness and all these good things, because I think we view them as a destination a lot of the time, but it really is my goal in this current existence to kind of be happy with where I am and what I have, rather than, and while always moving towards something, but always kind of bringing that gratitude to the present moment, which is way easier to say than to do so far. But again, new neural pathways, right? I look forward to carving them out and to sharing them with you. Okay, Kat. So we are at the end of the episode, and it's time for your glimmer, which is our little bit of joy and pixie fairy dust that we get to sparkle on our episode at the end so that we can share with the listeners what's lighting us up from the inside. So what do you got?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to be a big cheese ball today and say that I'm very grateful for you, Andrew. And I'm very grateful that you listened on a hard morning for me, and you tried everything you could to help me talk through a hard day. And it's really something I never want to take for granted, to have you and to have somebody who listens and who is just as much of a self-improvement nerd as I am, and that we can sort of talk about all the things and go deep and talk about all the triggers. And I am very, very grateful for you. I've got all kinds of sparkly things I could mention, but in this exact moment after this podcast, you're my biggest sparkle.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you too. And thank you for saying that. It's sure. I think that's a good place to stop right now. Thank you, Kat.
That's sweet. Okay, you're welcome. And for those listening, we will see you next time.
Hey, one last thing. Don't forget to go to 5yearyou.com/future to start getting those emails from your future self. It will change your life.
Hey guys, quick disclaimer. We're podcasters on the internet. If you need to seek professional help, please go see your healthcare professional.